Hi, my name is Chandler Boudreaux, and today I will be presenting my proposal for an edible aquaponic living wall in the Boston public market. So let's first start out with some background information on this market. The Boston public market is located in central Boston, which makes it easily accessible from all parts of Boston, nice and central, very easy to get to. Another thing that makes it very easy to get to is that it is easily accessible via public transport. So the green and red lines for the bus actually run right below this market, and it's 10 minutes from the nearest train station. Also, it's easily accessible via biking or walking just because of its centrality and because Boston's a pretty walkable place. Another thing that about this building that kind of nods to its ease of accessibility is that it's a repurposed state office building. It was actually the registry for motor vehicles um, before it was this market, and it actually provides central parking. It's $3 for 3 hours to park here, so then people can walk or bike around to other places around the market. This ability of it being so central kind of leads to some of its ID plus C V4 rating. It's a retail V4 rating for LEED. And in this market, it offers a variety of only locally produced products, but there are a couple of exceptions to that. Most of the products are produced only in New England. The exceptions, however, are just popular items that you can't get. However, some of these popular items can be grown through a living wall. So let me give you some of the benefits of a living wall. This is actually a living wall over at the Audubon Aquarium. You can see that there are a variety of different foliage ornamentals in here, but I'd like to grow herbs, leafy greens, and maybe some vegetables in a living wall like this. This one was mostly grown for its aesthetic appeal. And a good thing about living walls is they actually purify water when you are using them in a water filtration as a water filtration system with gray water, rainwater, or even water through that fish produce. Fish deposit their waste in aquaponics like this. They deposit their waste in a reservoir below, which is then pumped up, filtered, usually through sieving or kind of different size pores, and then that is deposited into the root space of an aquaponic or hydroponic production system. The living wall is a hydroponic production system. These fish would seamlessly integrate into the reservoir, and they would produce a valued source of seafood in this wall, as well as the previously seen vegetables in this wall. If you'll go through the nitrogen cycle, you'll see that bacteria will take the fish waste, turn it into fertilizer for the plants, just and then the waste produced by the vegetables can be fed to the fish in a circular system that would eliminate waste and produce food. Another thing is the design of this wall. So to design this wall optimally, it would have to be implemented in an easy to maintain and visible space, somewhere where workers can go in and harvest the vegetables, harvest the fish, especially in a a direct sale kind of market. They can harvest vegetables right from the wall. Even customers will be able to pick out their vegetables and get them produced right on site, just using the natural flow of nitrogen through the system. We would have to fit this design to the spatial and lighting requirements, kind of measuring the dimensions that this wall could be and what kind of light is coming in from daylighting nearby already built in, and see what the best place would be in the market. To construct this actual device, we could use recycled plastic materials. A lot of the constantly water exposed sections of a living wall, like this one that they have over in Tsunami, a local restaurant in Baton Rouge, are plastic, especially for the tubing and the drip sections. Um, we could use recycled plastic, even ocean plastic, to kind of combat the use of plastic in this design. And in order to reduce the amount of water used by this system, we could utilize gray water and collected rainwater. So the gray water could just come from nearby sinks, things where people are just washing their hands in a nearby bathroom, or water that was just used to wash vegetables at site. And those two can be mixed, especially to reduce any concentrations of detergents from the sinks, with rainwater collected from the roof of the Boston Public Market to make a very high quality um, fertigation water that would be purified by the plants and would be perfectly fine for the fish that usually don't have too many requirements in terms of the water quality that they need. But to go further into that, to implement the design that we'd make, we'd have to attach brackets to the walls, just kind of like here. This is actually a close-up from the previous um, display of the Ottoman Aquarium's hydroponic wall. These are brackets that hold the nursery pots at a 45-degree angle to allow for light exposure, and these would allow for ease in changing out any of these pots and would allow for plants to see any of the light coming nearby, and ease of installation by just having to install these brackets and anchor them into the wall. We would have to fit piping to maintain the reservoir, just piping coming from those gray water sources or even from the above the roof rainwater collection system, and they could mix in a tank or mix together in the reservoir where the fish lie. We would have to place emitters. You can kind of see the emitters around here that drip water into individual pots to water them, and then any overdrip goes through and falls to the bottom into the bottom reservoir where the fish would be. One important thing, especially when keeping any kind of fish, is cycling prior to introducing the fish. We would have to cycle this wall with maybe just a little bit of supplemented fertilizer and with the plants inside of them to build up those nitrifying bacteria. So when the fish come in, it won't be too much nitrogen, which would be toxic for them, and the plants would have an ample amount of fertilizer to start out and get used to this new growing environment. But once we have all that set up, we could just harvest for the fish or the vegetables whenever we need. And to go kind of into the LEED benefits, you can see that prior to implementing this wall, we had location and transportation benefits points for LEED due to the accessibility, the centrality of this building. There's a regional priority of providing local and fresh vegetables, especially whenever you have vegetables that are needing to be shipped all throughout the US. A lot of food comes from California, where it's pretty intensive to ship it from the West Coast to the East Coast, especially in somewhere like Boston, where it's so far north, it doesn't make sense to ship it all the way over there when it can be produced here. But then you have the materials and resources of constructing the Boston public market. They were reused and recycled materials to form the structure. And this kind of, both of these kind of nod to the additional ones as well. We would have water efficiency increases by using rainwater and gray water to create food instead of it just being wasted. We would have energy and atmosphere benefits in that the humidification and cooling of this wall would provide a better environment, which kind of nods to the environmental quality of having a living wall in an enclosed space, especially in a built environment. And finally, the regional priority, we can improve the select these supply of especially soft herbs and leafy greens, which are a little difficult to ship. If you kind of beat around soft herbs, they'll lose some of their flavor. If you move leafy greens around, there's the possibility of salmonella and other diseases coming up, and that's not good for sale. And finally, materials and resources, we could reuse those plastic pieces and plastic to form these kind of pockets. You can see this is a living wall that I am currently working with. And we actually have a lot of plastic components that we could reuse plastic for instead. And here are my references that I have used for this study, for this proposal. I hope you'll consider the Boston Public Market's living wall.